Well, I'm continuing with the core collection here and moving on from Kate Bush to the letter C. The letter C is pretty big or strongly represented in my collection, so it's probably going to take me a couple of videos to get through these. But the first one for letter C is John Cage Indeterminacy. This is a 2011 pressing. The original was released on Folkways in the 1950s. It came with a booklet that contained a lot of information about the recording process. All of that information is reproduced in here inside the inner jacket, which is kind of handy, so you don't have to have an extra booklet. This is pressed on heavyweight vinyl. I'd say it probably weighs about 200 grams, even though I haven't weighed it. Very nice. I'm not going to take these out of the inner sleeves. And this is on the Doxy label. Really great pressing. I've listened to this whole thing, and it sounds as good as the original. I had access to the original back in my college days and made a cassette recording of it, and this is just a phenomenal record. It's just got a lot of really fun experimental music with spoken word. John Cage telling a lot of stories about picking mushrooms in California in the 30s and Zen Buddhism and Schoenberg and all kinds of stuff. It's just a cornucopia of interesting sounds and ideas. Okay, record number 2 in the C's is Johnny Cash, From Sea to Shining Sea. I think this might be a 60s era Johnny Cash album. I have it in a Mobile Fidelity sleeve. It's on a brown Columbia label. Really good record. Has some of his lesser known work on it. Has a song about Tarpon Springs that I like quite a bit called Shrimp and Sailin'. A lot of folktale type music on here. This one's definitely worth picking up if you see it. Usually you can find it for cheap, maybe 10 to 20 bucks in good shape. Next up are a couple of A Certain Ratio albums. So this band starts with the letter A, but I have them filed under C because it's certain ratio, comma A. This is called The Old and the New. It's their recordings from 78 to 85, so you get a lot of the earlier kind of post-punk, jangly stuff that they did. It's on the Factory label. Pretty cool looking inner sleeve there. My notes from the last time I listened to this. And then this copy also comes with a bonus 7-inch single, which has the songs, whatever that is, Shack Up and Thin Boys on it. I don't remember too much about Thin Boys. Of course, Shack Up is one of their more well-known songs. Pretty neat. This was also released separately, but if you happen to buy an early pressing of this copy, it does come with it. It's glued onto the front of the album jacket there. It's a decent compilation. I like it. Up next is an album called Good Together, so these aren't in chronological order. I think this album is from 1989. It's more pop type ACR. Got some really, really nice artwork that I enjoy looking at quite a bit. This one is this is on A&M, so this is not on Factory anymore. A lot of people don't like the era of ACR that has their more pop type work, but I do. I kind of grew used to it after a while, although I do really like their earlier stuff with horns and funkier rhythms quite a bit as well. Good Together, ACR. The last ACR album in here is A Certain Ratio Live in America. This is from their 1985 tour. Sound quality on this is okay. I think it might be a soundboard recording. It's not the best one I've ever heard. It's the inner label. Performances are generally very good on this. I think I picked it up for $5 a long time ago. Kind of thought about trading it, but then I thought, nah, I'll keep it. What the heck, it's an ACR album. It's not like those are growing on trees, so it's a good one to have. Next is a compilation of classic early recordings by the band the Chameleons. I think they're also sometimes known as the Chameleons UK. And this one is called The Fan and the Bellows, which is one of the best tracks on here, the song The Fan and the Bellows. My personal favorite song on here, though, is one that DJ David put on a compilation tape for me back in the late 80s, and it's called Prisoners of the Sun, which has some snippets of dialogue in it, and it's more of an ambient instrumental that kind of builds as it goes. But there's some really good stuff on here. The 7-inch version of Nostalgia is quite good. In Shreds is good. So this is worth having. It's not as consistent as one of their regular LPs, and it's definitely not on the level of Strange Times or something like that, but it's a cool record to have. I think DJ David gave me that record a long time ago. All right, the next one, this is a real random collection of music in my C's at the start of the letter anyway, but the next one is Charo and the South Soul Orchestra. This is one of 2 Charo albums that I own. The other's on pink vinyl, and I think this might be her 2nd or 3rd record. It's got Dance a Little Bit Closer in her hushed, breathy voice, really crazy version of the Stones' Let's Spend the Night Together, Speedy Gonzalez, Cuchi-Cuchi. It's really just bonkers. So I treasure it so much I have it in a MoFi sleeve there. It's on the South Soul label. If you haven't heard it, go on Discogs, preview it, YouTube, check it out. I guarantee you won't regret it. All right, so this is a nice copy that I picked up for $4 or $5 at a record show a while back to replace a more beat up copy that I owned. Charo. Completely switching gears, we have Alex Chilton, Feudalist Tarts, an album that I believe, he put out in 1985 on the Big Time label. It has my favorite song on here, Thank You John, which is a cover of an old blues tune. Can't remember who the original artist was on that. His version's pretty true to the original though. Tina Nina Nu is another favorite on here. Some of the other songs I think are just okay, but I really dig this album. It's on the green Big Time label. Nice pressing. I think I bought this brand new when it came out. Kept it in good condition ever since. Alex Chilton. Next up, this one is really obscure. This is the XXXX Sessions by the Chrysanthemums. And if you look at the cover, you might think it's a Peel session album, but it's not. In fact, you read all of these band names and they're all just made up by the Chrysanthemums. Another interesting thing about this record is that it only has one side. So there's the side that has the 6 tunes on it. The other side has this elaborate etching, which I believe has the lyrics in some very crude drawings. Really cool album to have. I picked this up a long time ago, had no idea what it was. I only have maybe 2 or 3 releases by the Chrysanthemums. They do have a lot of music out there, but I just don't have any luck finding it. One other thing I should mention about this is that there's a track on here, what is it called? Bonus track, I think, where they demonstrate this weird instrument that they invented. It's I can't remember what they call it, but it's used in a song, Matter versus Space by Beulah, a band that came out in the early 2000s. Another really good band. So anyway, they sample I think they sampled the device. I don't think they actually own the device that produced those sounds. Okay, next up, one of my favorite albums in the C's, Seance by The Church, which was released with a pink cover variation and this blue one, both on a black background. I believe this is a French pressing. In fact, I'm sure this is a French pressing. It's on Carrere. It sounds wonderful. And of course, it's early church, just stellar music, compositions. Pick it up if you've never heard the Church before. They're best known for their 1988 hit Under the Milky Way. So I believe that this was actually their third record. Okay, switching gears again. We have an album by Cirith Ungol, King of the Dead. Cirith Ungol being a 1980s heavy metal band. This album came out on the Enigma label. I don't know why it's in a Warner Brothers sleeve, but anyway, it is. This is an original pressing. I think there's been a German repress at some point. Kept it in really nice condition. It's got this great art by, what's his name? Bill Whelan, I think. Anyway, crazy kind of metal music, hard to describe. Again, go on YouTube, check it out if you're curious to hear what it sounds like. This is an album that I ordered from a mail order catalog back in the 80s. Some friends and I got together and we ordered a bunch of obscure metal bands like Sortilege and Trust and Venom, which was obscure back then. Anyway, so I got my Cirith Ungol record, kept it ever since, play it every once in a while. Just a few more records to go here in the C's. Let's move on to some Clannad, their second album, Clannad 2. Really like Clannad. If you've ever heard their 80s or 90s stuff, it's a lot different from their early kind of folksy, more rootsy Gaelic recordings, which is what this represents. In fact, all the titles of the songs are in Gaelic. This one's also in a Mo-File sleeve. It's not surprisingly on the Shanashi label. Best known for Celtic, Gaelic type music and reggae and dub. Okay, I got a couple of Stanley Clarke LPs. First one is School Daze. This originally was released on the Nympher label, but my copy is on Epic. I think I picked this up at a record show to replace another copy that was not quite as nice. Has a lovely inner sleeve on Atlantic with some other contemporaneous jazz recordings from the time, including the best one on here, Lenny White's Venusian Summer. Another album I have on vinyl and on CD. And if you have ever heard the music, you know it's some slammin' bass playing. So even more slammin' is this double live album that Stanley Clarke released in the late 70s called I Want to Play For You. This is one you can usually find not too expensive. Hope you can see the nice concert photos in there. It's got some of his best known work on it. Very, very well performed with a cast that includes Jeff Beck and let's see, George Duke, Steve Gadd, Stan Getz, Freddie Hubbard, Airto, Lee Ritenour, Tom Scott. I mean, just an all-star cast. And an awesome record. And last but not least, I'm closing out with a Close Lobsters album. This is their first long player. It's called Foxheads Stalk This Land. They are a Scottish band that released albums on the Enigma label. So this one actually has a tiny cutout in it. A little bitty cutout right there, a notch cut. Love this music. It's pretty much Scottish jangle pop. Every song on here is well written. Their other albums aren't bad either, but I do prefer this first one. I have this on CD as well. And with that, I'm going to end it. The next time I pick up, I'll be talking about some Cocteau Twins, which is next up in my collection. And I will continue on through the C's. So thanks for watching.